Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU Audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Education, SOA, Master's Degree Programs, Master of Arts, Distance Education, MADE, First Year, MD 411 Growth and Philosophy of Distance Education, Block 4 Distance Education in South Africa, Unit 1, Understanding Distance Education in Africa. 1.0 Objectives. Sentience. L. Discuss and elaborate the basic concepts and practices that are widely used by distance education practitioners across the world. L. Examine how and why most of these concepts and practices are relevant to the African continent and its people, and to their human capital development strategies. L. Analyze and argue how the good practices that can make distance education systems effective and sustainable in the African context, and I'll explain the role that information and communication technologies can play in promoting distance education systems. 1.1 Introduction. While discussing various aspects of distance education throughout this course, we come back again and again to the definition of various concepts in distance education. At the risk of being repetitive, we do so with the purpose of placing these concepts in the context of the issues and situations under discussion. Redundancy is a critical element in didactic practice, and we hope that repetition will help you capture the nuances and subtleties of the usage of various terms in distance education. All forms of education have certain universality in their structures, processes, and practices. Distance education is no exception. Nevertheless, the manner in which a particular form of education finds its place within a national system and the ways in which it influences the policies and practices that particular governments follow for the development of their educational systems do vary from country to country and from continent to continent. Europe as a continent has several developed countries that have their own independent systems of education, each with its own unique character and style. Africa, on the other hand, is a continent of over 50 counties, most of which have a common legacy. All of them were colonies with no significant educational infrastructure and systems. All of them needed to build their education systems from scratch, and in doing so, they had to adopt and adapt what suited them best and fairly quickly. In the process, African countries have a mix of everything, ranging from the best of the European models to the more practical native variations. It is in this milieu that we have to place distance education theories and practices to understand what they mean to Africa and its people. In the following sections of this unit, we shall try to explore the content and meaning of the nature of distance education in the African context. 1 Point to the nature of distance education. Some key concepts. Early distance education endeavors in Africa covered a range of applications, from formal degree programs offered by University of South Africa, UNISA, from 1946 onwards, to a broadly based adult education campaign conducted by the Institute of Adult Education, University of Tanzania, during the 1960s. Initially, UNISA relied mainly on printed materials issued in the correspondence model with minimal contact, while the Tanzanian project used a combination of radio, printed, pamphlets, and community-based group work. Community and adult education programs through distance education using radio were very common in several counties in Africa. The INAIDS Foundation, established in 1962 in Côte d'Ivoire as a private initiative, was later extended to Burkina Faso, Togo, Democratic Republic of Congo, Cameroon, Burundi, Chad, Rwanda, and Zaire. This was initially confined to French-speaking Africa and to Ethiopia and Kenya. The programs offered by this institution were mainly in agriculture and allied fields. It also helped local communities engage in development initiatives through project formulation, etc. More recent projects covered a similar range of target audiences and program types. with one of the most significant changes over the Sentius modes as more and more ICT options became available. Interactive radio, instruction, IRI, and community radio were the major instruments that helped this growth. There are some individual case studies that provide interesting information about the early days of distance education in Africa, but there are not enough rigorous comparative studies. Policymakers and those who take decisions require empirically based knowledge of what works. Gully 2004. This clearly points to a need for a research plan as a foundation for the realization of the potential of open learning and distance education in Africa. Such research would enable the development of the necessary critical mass to address the common development challenges of Africa. Asmal 2004. Although at present, J. conferences and other occasional papers and articles help to deepen our understanding of distance education in Africa, some good practice in its provision and its relevance to Africa. 1.2.1 What is open learning in the African context? The distinction drawn between open learning and distance education is fundamental to our understanding of the African context. While open learning refers to a philosophy of educational practice, distance education refers to the methodology. The issue paper for the Conference of African Education Ministers on Open and Distance Learning held at Cape Town, South Africa in February 2004, All Africa Ministers Conference on Open Learning and Distance Education, Amkolde, 2004, 1st February, J. Define the two concepts. In the following terms, open learning can be defined as an approach of philosophy which combines the principles of learner-centeredness, lifelong learning, flexibility of learning provision, removal of barriers to access learning, recognition of prior learning experience, provision of learning support, construction of learning programs in the expectation that learners can succeed, and the maintenance of rigorous quality assurance over the design of learning materials and support systems. Open learning is applicable to all education practice. We know that conventional education practices are marked by certain definite characteristics. Nearly all of them. A. J. Sentius. Stage, they have a predetermined duration, the curricula are determined in advance and generally do not permit any combinations that students might prefer. They require the physical presence of students at prescribed hours for specified periods, and most of the programs are teacher-centric. In other words, the formal system has over a period of time acquired certain rigidities with regard to its structures and processes. Sentius J. Sentius marked a decisive break from these rigidities, and it literally opened the doors of formal education to all irrespective of their previous educational J. Sentius to pursue, and the rigidities of timelines in the completion of studies. The learners moved center stage, and programs of education were built around their choices and expectations. 1.2.2 What is distance education for Africa? Distance education is used to describe learning activities in which the characteristics listed above are important. In distance education, there is a separation of teacher and learner, and such learning usually involves the use of mixed media courseware with different modalities for learner support. Distance education is unique as it encourages a more flexible learner-centric approach and provides opportunities for learning anywhere and anytime. Africa's diversity is evident in the ways in which the principles of open learning and distance education are applied. It would be unwise to suggest that any single model for distance education will work on this continent. Models need to be designed to meet local needs. However, it would be worthwhile to identify certain essentials that deserve closer consideration by those concerned with policy making, the design and development of distance education projects. and their funding and effective implementation. We shall try to take a look at some of these issues in this block. 1.2.3 Open and Distance Education Implications for Africa. One of the core issues concerning the changing nature of distance education has to do with the increasing emphasis being given to face-to-face tuition and mentoring in the design of distance education programs. This is an essential characteristic of distance education techniques as applied to technical and vocational education and training, and to adult education in a community context. At the same time, contact students are making more extensive use of ICTs to access information without a teacher having to be physically present. Different views on this apparent convergence of distance and face-to-face contact education are reflected in the recent distance education discourse, according to Robert Ensor of the Institute for Social Studies, Netherlands. In formulating ICT policy, it is perhaps best to break with the dualism of distance and regular contact education and regard methods of education delivery as a continuum from purely independent study through guided collaborative online independent study at a distance, with occasional face-to-face support, to extensive face-to-face tuition where immediate interaction is essential. Professor Salim Barta of the Council on Higher Education, South Africa, provides another perspective. The continuum of education provision can be used to describe a range of educational practice in which educational provision can be located based on its mix of methods. The greater use there is of educational methods that assume temporal and/or spatial separation between students and educators, the more this provision will tend towards the distance education pole of the continuum. The more direct contact between educators and learners, the more it will tend towards the face-to-face pole. The reality is that all educational provision exists somewhere on this continuum, but cannot be placed strictly at either pole. What does it signify for the African countries? As we noted earlier, the population strength of most countries is not very large. Most of them will not be able to sustain dedicated open learning and distance education institutions. The choice will necessarily be to promote a mixed mode of educational provision in which conventional face-to-face programs for a small number of students coexist with distance education programs that can enroll large numbers. We shall have occasion to come back to this issue later in this block. 1.2.4 Convergence, Flexible Learning and Other Concepts. Convergence is a term that we hear a great deal about these days. As we have just noted, convergence of modes of delivery, that is, mixed use of distance delivery techniques and face-to-face instruction in all education is one type. The other is the convergence of technologies in which multimedia instructional packages that combine text, voice and image make a powerful tool in the delivery of education. These tools are being used increasingly in conventional education too. It would be useful to keep this distinction between the two concepts of convergence in view as distance education systems evolve and widen their range of delivery technologies. Policy makers at the national level in most countries will have to address the issue of convergence in order to determine the place of distance education in their overall educational systems and the allocation of resources for distance education institutions and projects. On the one hand, and to the entire education system for technology applications on the other. In educational theory and practice that began in the 1960s, emergence of education as a development indicator and transformation of higher education into mass education were two major features of the new paradigm. These global changes also coincided with the liberation era in Africa. Perhaps it was a sign of the times and the emergence of democracy in Africa that the more authoritarian teacher-dominated transmission models of education began to move towards models where teacher and student jointly constructed meaning and understanding. That was the beginning of the process of learner centered education that placed African learners and their needs at the center of the educational process. Learner centeredness tries to build the real needs of the learner into the design of course and the provision of face to face support at the learning centers through study groups, discussion groups, and other techniques. Successful examples of learner centered practices across the educational spectrum are reported from Nigeria, Mohammed Ismaila, Kenya, Limoji, Ghana, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Zambia, Siasevena, and South Africa, Pityana. Effective implementation of this approach requires new ways of thinking about the physical location of resources needed to provide quality distance education, as well as about the educational process itself. The key to self sufficiency and sustainability in distance education, as in many other endeavors, is control and possession of the necessary material and human resources, flexibility. Education. Apparently, it has to do with the transformation that we have just noted. Over centuries, the formal system had acquired rigidities of all kinds. Course combinations, entry qualifications, age, and other admission requirements all got frozen in time. Higher education became an almost exclusive privilege. Democratization of education, which, in fact, is inclusive education, required that the system opened up. That marked the beginning of building flexibilities into the system itself. The open learning approach, supported by distance education techniques, allowed for a new flexibility in the learning experience that responded to the needs of non traditional learners. And distance education systems began to evolve from its initial postal education version to the present flexible learning model. The major features of this model are it applies to teaching and learning wherever they occur on campus, off campus, and cross campus. It frees up the place, time, and methods as well as the pace of teaching and learning. It is learner centered rather than teacher centered. It helps students to become independent lifelong learners. It changes the role of the teacher who becomes a mentor and facilitator of learning. Professor Gajraj Dhanrajan, the former CEO of the Commonwealth of Learning, had referred to the recent tendency for many learners to enter university later in their lives. These new students are most likely to be employed, although not on campus. They are seeking to enhance their vocational skills. They require flexibility with regard to place, time, mode, and pace of learning, as well as a curriculum that will meet their lifelong needs. But flexibility is not just about the providers loosening up a bit. Together with the freedom created by such flexibility goes the responsibility for students to take charge of their own learning. The discussion so far leads us to the conclusion that flexibility is the core of open learning and distance education. It is also the nexus between the two. It creates significant opportunities as most African governments, African distance education systems are poised to take on these challenges, become more flexible, and even more innovative in customizing. Good stage is therefore very low. Tertiary education systems in many countries are in very bad shape. How is Africa going to fill these enormous gaps in their educational provision? What are the policy options available to them? We shall examine some of these crucial issues in the sections that follow. 1.3.1 Education and Development. Millennium Development Goals adopted in 2000 at the General Assembly of all heads of state and government list 8 goals: End poverty and hunger, Universal education, Gender equality, Child health, Maternal health, Combat HIV/AIDS, Environmental sustainability, Global partnership. The development campaign focuses on poverty reduction, education, health, women's equality, and environment. These are interrelated goals, each one of them depends on each other. Well, These are the elements of the campaign for development. But what is development? Is it simply reducing poverty and improving health and environment? Or has it a deeper meaning? Nobel Prize winner Amartya Sen provides a new way of thinking about development. For him, development is about freedom. What measures development is the degree by which people's freedom is enhanced. There are many kinds of freedom: freedom from hunger, freedom from poverty, freedom of expression and freedom of religion, freedom of choice and freedom of political participation. Without freedom, there is no development. It is only the free agency of people that can lead to development. It is people who develop families, communities, societies, and nations. Free people, J. People and people enhance development, development and freedom thus feed on each other. Amartya Sen argues that while classical economic theories of development focused on human capital, the human capability argument places freedom of people at the center of development. The human capital argument favored education, learning, and skill formation as means for people to become more productive and contributing more to the process of economic expansion. The perspective of human capability focuses, on the one hand, on the ability, the substantive freedom of people to lead the lives they have reason to value and to enhance the real choices they have, while economic prosperity helps people to have wider options and to E. J. J. Sentious freedom that people actually enjoy. These social developments must directly count as developmental, since they help us to lead loner, freer, and more fruitful lives. Development as freedom. Amartya Sen, Oxford University Press, 2000. 1.3.2 Policies and Politics. In his keynote address to the Education Ministers' Conference on ODL at Cape Town in 2004, titled Prospects, Possibilities and Perils, Distance, Education Response to Africa's Development Needs, Professor Kadar Asmal, South Africa's Minister of Education at that time, offered a different perspective. While listing the promises of ODL in the following terms, L. It enhances access to education. L. It is cost efficient in that increased enrollment does not necessarily mean an increase in staff or physical infrastructure. L. It promotes quality through the development and provision of learning resources. L. It facilitates lifelong learning of underqualified and unqualified teachers. He had a word of caution as well. These promises could easily be negated by bad practices. He emphasized the need to explore and interrogate the promise and claim that open learning and distance education provide a cost-effective solution to expanding access and enhancing the quality of education. According to him, the guiding principles for this exploration should be L. Education and the act of learning is a profoundly social act, and L. Technology is not a panacea for the challenges that confront education and training on our continent. He advocated a critical approach. We must guard against the uncritical introduction and adoption of distance education and the associated new technologies. Unless we do so, we are in danger of once again turning our countries and continent into laboratories for educational experiments for external agencies, the failure of which in past decades has done untold damage to our educational systems. Africa has been in a prolonged crisis. In the West, Africa was called a continent in chaos. Political instability, bad governance, and chronic, internecine conflicts had plagued many countries for several years. Poverty and malnutrition has had its toll on human life. To top it all, HIV/AIDS pandemic has been claiming the lives of many. According to the Food and Agricultural Organization of the UN, about 265 million people in Africa are hungry and poor, living on less than 1800 calories per day. As the democratic era began to collapse and the steep decline began, somewhere in the 1970s, the developed countries began suggesting that Africa needed to behave itself and let the market forces take over with no interference from governments. The World Bank and the IMF virtually ran the economic policies of the detritus continent, recommending regimens of budgetary belt tightening known technically as structural countries. By the turn of the century, Africa was poorer than during the 1960s. All these had thrown the promising educational systems in most countries totally devastated. As always, education took the bulk of budget cuts. There was no money to pay the salaries of teachers. Most of the bright, higher education systems suffered the most. The World Bank's prescription was to focus on primary education and reduce the budgets for universities and higher education. World Bank, international organizations like the UNESCO and several rich countries stepped in with aid packages according to what they thought could help the sick Africa. During the 1980s and 1990s, distance education had made major contributions to development in most developing countries. Distance education methods and practices were not new to Africa. Several countries received support from aid agencies. UNESCO supported major teacher education initiatives, while World Bank sponsored several country-specific initiatives in distance education, besides what came to be known as the African Virtual University, AVU. There were, in addition, a large number of bilateral aid programs sponsored by several governments. Despite substantial inflow of aid, the situation on the ground did not show any signs of improvement. The outcomes of the many initiatives in education did not add up. The African Virtual University was a costly experiment in sophisticated technology sponsored by the World Bank in 1997. The aim of the project was to deliver programs of professional education developed by American universities to African students using satellite communication technology. Predictably, there were no takers for this expensive educational innovation. Several years later, the AVU project was handed over to the Africans in 2000. Located in Kenya, the AVU has in 10 years trained about 30,000 African students at the degree and diploma levels. This is not the place to go into a detailed critique of African economic development. Yet, it helps to understand the African mindset and the skepticism about distance education and technology intervention. And that explains the frustration of African leadership with educational innovations proposed by the developed West and the misgivings expressed by the South African education minister. Quoted at the beginning of this section, 1.3.3 Does Africa need distance education? The question of relevance of distance education to Africa still remains. Whatever the misgivings, distance education has proved its utility and effectiveness for developing countries in Asia, Latin America as well as the countries in the Caribbean and Pacific regions. Addressing the same conference at Cape Town, Sir John Daniel, then Additional Director General of UNESCO, made a powerful plea for distance education and its relevance for Africa. All the names, ranging from virtual learning and multimedia education to flexible learning, refer only to the single reality of distance education that enables providers reach out to more people at more places and at more times. Africa needs massive expansion of opportunities for learning by widening access to quality education at affordable cost. Distance education, in fact, is the outcome of the deconstruction of the education process into its component parts, namely design, planning, implementation and evaluation, and undertaken by specialists in each component through division of labor, instead of being carried out by a single teacher, necessary with interactive media. If a right balance between the two can be established, it can achieve economies of scale in providing quality education and cost effectiveness. Interaction with part-time tutors can reduce tuition costs. The marginal cost in using interactive media like computer-assisted learning does not add to the cost with the increase in the number of learners. How are all these relevant to Africa, one might ask? The answer, according to Sir John Daniel, is institutions like the UNISA, now made up of Technikon SA, Vista, University and the old UNISA itself, has over 200,000 students on its rolls pursuing distance education programs. The majority of all African students in higher education are also distance learners. University of Zimbabwe and the newly revived Nigerian Open University promise sufficiently large enrollments. The very low age participation ratio in higher education in Africa suggests major gaps in the higher education provision. If good quality education is provided at affordable cost, distance education provision can sustain itself. With the declining costs of independent learning media, computers, the cost of distribution of knowledge is dropping. The availability of course material free of cost on the websites, open source materials of several well-known institutions can help. Virtual universities like AVU and Colonel's WUSC provide quality education at reasonable cost. One of the gravest problems that Africa faces is the acute shortage. Augment their teacher training systems by using distance education methods. The digital divide is no excuse for not making any effort at technology applications. Use of computers for teaching and learning. J. Sentius. To catch up, and it need not and should not give up. The demographic changes in Africa have been quite unlike in much of the rest of the world. Due to a combination of circumstances, environmental, Sentius, with a population half of which is less than 20 years of age, and the growth of population continues to rise at an alarming rate. The result is that governments are unable to build school systems fast enough to absorb the increasing numbers of primary, secondary and college level students. These young people are eager to find educational opportunities world, a need that can effectively be addressed by distance education systems. Zain L. Burge in Tajore, April 2007. Burge goes on to argue that the high level of interinstitutional cooperation that is necessary for the success of distance education in SSA demands common national strategies for institutions organizing day programs and the governments and institutions that help shape them. Radio, communication, postal services, telecommunication and schools should all get orchestrated in a fluid system. When governments get education, its relevance and inevitability in the African context is beyond dispute. 1.4 Elements of good practice. Good practices are commonly accepted practices within the higher education community that enhance institutional quality. It is a positive action that must be successful, innovative, have a possible multiplying effect or transference to other institutions, and be sustainable. 1.4.13 Pillars of distance education. In broad terms, good practice in distance education in Africa rests on the three pillars of distance education: course design and development, learner support and administration. Policy makers can support distance education by creating an environment that encourages integration of these three pillars at institutional level within a comprehensive national distance education policy framework. In South Africa, for example, a distance education quality standards framework has been in place since 1996. This framework sets out a list of criteria that a distance education institution must adhere to in its program development and delivery. Yet, there have been instances of breaches of these practices by institutions. For instance, studies have found that too few teachers have been coordinating too many courses, the systems for appointment of and payment to part-time teachers had no adequate administrative support, programs were developed with no clear idea about possible beneficiaries. There was mismatch between their levels, duration, and the national qualification framework requirements for employment. The contents were incoherent and the learning packages were disorganized. There were delays in distribution of materials and inadequacies in monitoring. Glennie Welch. Good administrative practice requires that a number of interrelated systems operate efficiently in support of teaching and learning. These include systems for marketing and recruitment, student registration, examination, administration, student records, financial administration, the management of dispersed tuition and mentoring, the management and administration of staff including decentralized and part-time staff, the production and distribution of courseware, and the management of the underlying ICTs necessary for both administration and teaching. In order to ensure the sustainability of a distance education enterprise, these and other systems have to be carefully designed and maintained. Every step in each process needs to be carefully thought through and organized. Elements of industrial practice with its division of labor need to be introduced into distance education management. Although this is not sentience, is a prerequisite for student satisfaction and success, course design and development lies at the heart of the educational process. Good practice requires a high level of expertise in curriculum development, course design, courseware design and development, and assessment of learning. In order to achieve self-sufficiency, these activities need to be integrated with the professional development of teaching staff. Learner support is essential to the success of distance education programs, whether they are formal degree offerings or community development projects with very specific objectives. Examples of learner support practices range from online chat groups and telephone support to tutorial sessions in learning centers and informal work groups in the community or workplace. One of the most significant elements of good distance education practice that differentiates it from traditional correspondence courses is the personal contact and learning achieved through learner support. A further dimension of learner support includes access to knowledge through well-functioning libraries and the whole range of ICTs. While these three elements are crucial from the organizational point of view, it is equally important that systems should be in place to continuously study and analyze the experiences gained, the innovations introduced, and the impact that the current practices have made on the overall performance of the system. Systematic research and documentation are thus critical to the growth of distance education systems. There are several organizations in Africa that are engaged in such research. Notable among them is the South African Institute for Distance Education, SAID, that was established in 1992 to promote open learning principles and the quality of the distance education provision through systematic research and investigations. 1.4.2 Sustaining distance education systems. The long-term sustainability of distance education enterprises can only be assured if these systems and processes are continuously evaluated and improved upon within an institutional ethos of accountability and good governance. Having said this, it would be worthwhile to look at some of the successful distance education programs and the practices they follow. The best programs are those that partner with universities outside Africa, especially those in the United States, Europe and Asia, that have set up campuses in Africa. This allows sharing of resources and offering high-quality courses to students. For instance, students at AVU in Kenya take online classes at MIT. The FORCed program in Benin permits students to take classes at McGill University in Canada, and the RISAFAD program in Djibouti connects teachers for training at French universities. Durkwa, 2000. The most successful programs also take advantage of the resources offered by international donor and development community, including the World Bank and UNESCO. They also partner with several agencies and associations in Africa that support distance education programs. Successful programs primarily depend on print media, supplemented with communication by radio, text, and email. They do not rely heavily on e learning systems. They do nevertheless try to induct as much of modern ICTs as they can by building digital libraries in partnership with those who run such libraries and establishing networks of tutor-led learning centers or cyber cafes. These learning centers provide access to learning materials and listening viewing facilities as well as opportunities for interaction with tutors and peer groups, and in short, good practices for success in distance education are cooperation and collaboration with partner institutions, sharing resources, ensuring adequate financial support, and creating and maintaining satisfactory learner support systems to sustain learner interest. 1.4.3 Technology versus tradition. Africa now offers to find examples of running good distance education programs, one using traditional methods and the other using modern technologies. UNISA, using traditional methods of printed texts, correspondence, and minimal contact lessons, has now an enrollment of over 200,000 students and continues to grow. The African Virtual Sentience, substantially serving all of Africa with a high level of integration of ICTs in its distance education delivery. Since 2000, it has trained 30,000 students at the degree and diploma levels. Its programs are still not easily affordable, but it has obviously come to stay. As Birch puts it, the difference between AVU and UNISA is that while AVU uses technology to teach technology, UNISA uses traditional methods to teach traditional subjects, in addition to some IT and engineering. 1.5 The role of technologies. The South African Education Minister's remarks quoted above concerning the social dimensions of learning and the idea that ICT is not a panacea for the challenges to distance education in Africa provide a backdrop when considering technology applications for education delivery in J. And communication technologies are probably a necessary step to improve education, but it is certainly not a sufficient step. 1.5.1 Early uses of technologies in Africa. Africa has a long history of using communication technologies for education and development. According to a World Bank Working Paper, 2002, these technologies are increasingly being used to widen access, improve the effectiveness of teaching, and extend the outreach of programs at different levels of education in sub-Saharan Africa. The paper mentions several instances of interactive radio instruction, IRI, educational television, and use of computers at the level of primary education, and extensive use of these and other forms of more sophisticated ICTs like video technology, satellite communication, and internet in the secondary, tertiary, and teacher education programs in Africa. According to the World Bank, the cost of technology-based programs is determined by the following aspects. The cost of the hardware represents about a quarter of the total cost. As distance education systems have higher fixed costs and lower variable costs, they can achieve economies of scale if the numbers are high. Technologies with higher fixed costs and lower variable costs, such as radio, can be inexpensive if they serve large numbers of students and the recurrent costs are manageable, and technologies with higher variable costs, such as personal computers that work in conjunction with conventional teachers, may improve quality, but they may be prohibitive at the primary school level, where teacher supervision is a requirement. A literature survey on policy and practice in open and distance learning, commissioned by the ADIA Working Group on Distance Education and Open Learning in 2002, found that among the Anglophone countries, 96% of the institutions used print, higher technologies like audio conferencing, satellite communication, internet, etc., L among the francophone countries, print medium was used by 88%, communication by 18 to 34%. Among the lusophone countries, 90% used print, 70% used radio. The survey covered over 140 institutions, and the finding clearly establishes the wide use of available technologies in the delivery of distance education programs. 1.5.2 Closing the digital divide. We have noted elsewhere that African countries have been lagging far behind other countries in terms of access to and use of modern ICTs. In the 1990s, for instance, not more than a dozen countries in Africa had access to internet. The use of personal computers was very low. Even where internet was available, connectivity was a major problem. This divide between Africa and the rest of the developed world was described as the digital divide. For most African countries, closing this gap is an urgent issue. At the initiative of the Organization of African Unity, OAU, the heads of African governments decided to launch a united effort for Africa's development at the turn of the current century. The new initiative, called New Partnership for African Development, NEPAD, was launched in 2001. NEPAD is a vision and a strategy. Among its major goals is the closing of the digital divide. NEPAD proposes the development of continent-wide infrastructure for IT and the training of a critical mass of personnel trained in IT skills through its e-school program. An e-commission established by NEPAD has plans to use the African Virtual University in establishing technology-enhanced learning centers in all African state capitals to begin with. Peter Kinyanjui, Program Commissioner of the E-Commission, told AMCOLD in February 2004, impact that information and communication technologies, ICTs, can have on all aspects of human life. The development of the ICT sector is, therefore, identified as one of the priority focus areas of NEPAD, aimed at defining the continent's new and aggressive effort to accelerate Africa's economic development and growth. NEPAD has established special task teams for the priority programs. In the ICT sector, the NEPAD task team is known as the E-Africa Commission. The E-Africa Commission is responsible for developing policies and strategies and projects at the continental level, as well as managing the structured development of the ICT sector in the context of NEPAD. The NEPAD ICT program is intended to accelerate the development of ICT infrastructure and its use for a wide range of applications and services. Its ultimate purpose is to create an information society and knowledge-based economy in Africa. It is in the information and knowledge industry that jobs are created fastest. The key priorities, according to Kinyanjui, are 1. To develop an ICT infrastructure across the African continent, and 2. To develop ICT skills in a critical mass of the African population. 1.5.3 New technologies in use. At this point, it would be useful to take a look at the ICTs currently in use for educational delivery in Africa. These are television and radio broadcasts using satellite and conventional transmission systems, computer-based online, interactive courseware, access to knowledge using the internet and e-libraries, computer-based standalone CD-ROM material from simulations and interactive courseware to library books, writing of assignments, telephone and fax using landlines and wireless technology. J. Sentius. Sentius. Technology component in the delivery of the largest distance education provider in Africa, UNISA, is only nominal. It would be worthwhile to remind ourselves that it took the UKOU all of 4 decades to move away from broadcast delivery of its courses through BBC and focus more on DVDs and internet and web-based delivery systems. In Africa, a beginning has been made, and the question is, can Africa sustain it? J. Sentius. Ourselves that the availability of a particular technology is not the sole Determinant of a successful distance education program. 1.5.4 Technology integration in distance education. We just mentioned that no technology, by itself, can sustain or assure the success of distance education. Nor do we use technology for its own sake. If we are serious about technology enhanced learning, we need to integrate the tools provided by technology into the teaching and learning processes. It is useful to note that ICTs are seldom used without some form of printed material. The design decisions concerning an appropriate mix of technologies, including print, are critical for the success of any program. The design and technology mix used must take the situation of the target group into account. The potential of a specific technology must not be judged in terms of its capability alone, but in the context of the human, economic, and physical environment it serves. Great benefits can be realized with relatively unsophisticated technology. The cost, both to the learner and the institution, of using a particular technology is a major factor in its viability and sustainability. Partnerships with international development agencies and the private sector can help meet infrastructure and program costs. Decentralized learning centers equipped with adequate ICT facilities are necessary for learner access. Computers sometimes create bigger problems than they solve. Both staff and students have to learn to use technology, and learners have to take charge of their own learning. Satellite technology, as an alternative to landlines and conventional broadcasting, offers viable means of reaching African learners and learning. There are no easy answers to the complex issue of determining the suitability of any particular kind of ICTs for education delivery in Africa. Professor Kinyanjui believes that research in Africa and elsewhere has shown that there are some technology applications that can be implemented in African countries on an affordable and sustainable scale. In support of this view, he mentions the successful projects in teacher development, maths, science, and technology teaching in secondary schools, quality improvement projects in primary schools through SchoolNet project, and expansion of access to tertiary education. In his opinion, these applications offer the least risk for decision makers and warrant further investigation into their appropriateness in specific situations. 1.6 Summary. J. Sentius view of what distance education provision means to African countries generally. Africa was one of the first countries that had set up a distance education university, the University of South Africa, UNISA. Though UNISA continues to be a major distance education provider in the world, most countries in the continent are languishing for want of adequate educational opportunities for their people. The human development record of most countries is poor. Nearly all of them require massive expansion of their education systems at all levels. Conventional means of building schools and colleges, recruiting and training teachers, and enrolling students are no longer an option for most countries. They have to go for innovative methods like distance education and open learning systems to catch up with the rest of the world. We have focused our J. Sentius concepts and practices followed by open learning and distance education systems across the world and the policies and practices that Africa must promote to make these innovative systems integral to their educational provision. We have also briefly touched upon the role that modern technologies can play in making that possible. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next video with next chapter.